Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm the Depressing Engineer, and so I wanted to talk about the plan to escape a defense contracting job, because I know the hardest part about defense contracting is kind of once you're in it, it's actually kind of really hard to get out of it. And the reason that can be so difficult is because a lot of defense contracting jobs require you to have a security clearance, and a security clearance doesn't really translate to many other places other than defense contracting. There's a bunch of other reasons too, like defense contracting, there's a lot of specific tasks that they want you to do that specifically relate to defense contracting that, again, don't really translate too well to other jobs. Now, I haven't really been posting videos recently because I got sick. I had the flu. Whether or not it was a coronavirus or not, I have no idea. I'm an American, and as we all know, Americans don't go to the doctor. So I did have a fever of 102 at one point, so I pretty much stayed at home for an entire weekend, just mitigating that and taking a bunch of pills. So I'm feeling a lot better now, but I'm still a little nasally and a little congested here and there, so apologies if I have to cut out a lot of coughing during this video. But in any case, back to the topic at hand. So defense contracting, how do you get out of it? And some of this might actually just apply to how to get out of an office job as well, but for the most part I'm just going to try to focus on defense contracting. There are, I don't know, I'd say at least 2 or 3 different ways you can find yourself getting out of it. And obviously the first option is to just apply to jobs. I've had people ask me, how do you get out of defense contracting once you're in it? It's like any other job, really. You just start applying to other jobs that you're interested in, and hopefully you get an interview, and then hopefully from there you get an offer, and then you can negotiate your offers, and business as usual for that. Now obviously as that's easier said than done, right? I actually while I was sick, I had an interview with a company called Medtronic, and the reason I applied to their company is because I'm actually really interested in medical devices. As an electrical engineer, I wanted to feel like my electrical engineering expertise is being used to help people, and my mom has a background in medical science as a nurse, so I don't know, it just seemed kind of like an interesting route to take. Now, did I change up my resume a whole lot? Did I make up that I worked in a healthcare field? No, I pretty much left all my defense contracting experience on my resume. Now, I do have an internship from a long time ago when I worked at Invacare, and I brought that up in the interview where I did work on electric scooters and healthcare products back in Ohio. Of course, that's not really on my current resume because, again, that was an internship and it was a long time ago, but it was something I was able to at least bring up. Now, if I would have maybe put that on my resume for this job application, maybe that would have been better. Possibly. I think what they were looking for, though, was a test engineer, and I have a decent amount of experience in troubleshooting and testing, so I was able to translate some of the testing and troubleshooting that I've had from defense contracting over to this interview. Now, I haven't heard back from the interview. It's only been a couple of days, so I'm still probably going to hear back from them at the end of this week, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not super optimistic just because they were looking for a senior test engineer, and I wouldn't consider myself a senior test engineer. And I think they're looking for somebody who has a lot more test software experience, like especially in LabVIEW. And so that comes to another route of getting out of defense contracting, right? If you want to get out of defense contracting, you're going to have to work on some skills that will actually translate better to another job sector. So like learning different software skills. As I've said before in my previous videos, software engineering is probably one of the better engineerings just because it's a little more broad. People like to say that electrical engineering is very broad, but the problem is if your knowledge is very broad in electrical engineering, you never really specialize in anything, it actually makes yourself a little bit harder to become hired by other companies, because especially in defense contracting, there's not a whole lot of, unless you've got your master's degree and you specialize in like optics or nanotechnology or things like that. But if you're just a bachelor's degree graduate and you get a defense contracting job, a lot of what you're doing is just plugging in cables to other cables, plugging in cables to devices, using DMMs and oscilloscopes, and then writing up reports and analyses, and that's pretty much it, really. Well, of course, writing up documentation translates well to most engineering jobs, but you're not really specializing in anything. So if you want to go work for like a satellite company, which again, I'd be a little hesitant to that because a lot of satellite companies work for the government. But, if that's where the route you want to go, then go for it. But you kind of need satellite experience. Even some of the entry-level positions I've seen for satellite design engineers, it's like, oh, you still need 5 years of experience in satellite design. Where am I supposed to get this from? Am I supposed to design a satellite right next to my dehumidifier? Like, I don't have an electronics lab at home. And this is where things get a little more complicated, especially for electrical engineers, when they want specific experience for things like that like failure analysis and satellite design, or even cardiac device designs, and medical devices in general require you a lot of the time to have medical device experience. Where am I supposed to get that? I don't freaking know. These are things that you would usually train your employee up to learn to, and then they would learn more as they go on, as they apply their generalized knowledge that they've picked up from other engineering jobs. So again, you might have to spend time outside of your defense contracting job picking up other skills, whether that's through, I don't know, programs like Skillshare or what is it, U Academy or whatever. I don't know. There's a bunch of online resources, and you can take online courses to just at least help pick up a certain skill that you're missing. So if you're looking at a certain job sector and you're noticing a lot of like, oh, I don't have a whole lot of FPGA experience, you can take online courses that teach you how to use FPGA. Or you can just self-teach yourself. That sounded weird, but you can teach yourself FPGA as well. You can buy books. I think there are a few free online courses that you can find if you look hard enough. And you can even go ahead and buy yourself like an FPGA kit and teach yourself at home if you have the time and motivation to do so. And then there are other routes to get out of defense contracting as well, which is, especially if you're not even interested in engineering anymore, then you're gonna have a really hard time basically starting from scratch. Whether that's going back to college, maybe getting your master's degree if you really want to, but if you don't want to do engineering anymore, obviously you don't want to do that, so you'd have to pick up a whole nother degree, which, again, I don't know, in this day and age, especially in the United States where degrees are so freaking expensive, even for a bachelor's degree, I'm not entirely sure I would recommend that. But if you have the money, or if you know of a cheaper school, sometimes going to a trade school is even better than doing the whole college thing again. And again, there are online sources. If you want to just completely change things up, you're going to have to spend the time outside of your defense contracting job to teach yourself new skill sets. And obviously, if you want to go into like the medical field and become a doctor or a nurse, you kind of have to go through the school system. And obviously, you'll have to. I don't know a whole lot about that sector, so you'd have to go do your own research. But again, that would definitely be a place where you'd probably have to start from scratch. Now, if you want to get a business degree or something, a lot of schools, if you already have your engineering degree, you can almost pretty much get a free ride to go get your business degree. In fact, if you have a bachelor's in engineering, I think you can actually go get a master's. You can go get your MBA, and a lot of colleges will actually pay for it. In fact, the University of Toledo, the college that I graduated from, if I were to go back there, with my engineering degree, I think they basically pay for an MBA for me. And again, that's another debatable whether or not an MBA is even worth getting, especially when you see all these people who start their own businesses and they don't have a degree at all. There it is. But digital marketing is also a pretty popular one. I've seen a lot of people take online courses for digital marketing and then get a job in digital marketing, which is digital marketing is basically just running ad campaigns online for various companies. And then that's another route you can go to, as well as obviously self-employment. And then self-employment, as I'm sure most of you know, takes a lot of work and effort, depending on what you go into. I mean, it should probably take a lot of work and effort either way, but every once in a while somebody wins the lottery in their own business and they actually end up making a lot of money. But you can start your own Amazon FBA business. Although I've been looking into Amazon FBA recently, and you have to do a ton of product research. You have to really make sure you're trying to find niche markets, and you're basically just trying to find holes in the market where you can make profits. And it's very difficult, especially if you're trying to find a product and then you're basically trying to get it all shipped from China. But most of the stuff you're getting shipped from China is already being bought by another supplier. So it's very competitive. It's very cutthroat. So if you want to go that route, just be prepared to, you're going to have to at least spend like $3,000 because you basically have to buy a product research tool, and then you have to buy large quantities of the product that you want from China, and then have that shipped over to Amazon FBA. And if you really want to get fancy with it, you can do private labeling, which costs more money as well. And if you want to do your own packaging, that costs money. So you're going to be spending probably at least like $3,000, and it's not always guaranteed that you're going to be making a ton of money off it. So you'll hopefully at least make your money back. So I can understand that being kind of a scary route. I'm just going down that route because I'm pretty much willing to do anything to get out of the office job at this point. Amazon FBA seemed to be a pretty popular one. People recommend doing blogs. I did a blog for a little bit. I got like pretty much you have to be doing a blog for at least a year to see even any results. You have to get your affiliate links. You have to start advertising on your blog. And you have to put like Google ads on your website and all that. And I used to do writing in my journal a decent amount, so I thought, oh, whatever. But if you're not willing to commit to like writing an article at least 2, maybe at least 3 times a week for the next year of your life, then that's probably not the route for you to go into. People can also write books, and you can self-publish. So there's a bunch of all these like entrepreneurial ways to make money. Kind of one that also ties into that is there's a possibility, it's very rare, but it's very possible that if you want to quit your current job, you can try to start your own independent contractor business. So when I got my current job over with Northrop Grumman, I actually started off as a contractor, or technically a subcontractor, because Northrop Grumman's already a contractor to the government. So I was a subcontractor through some other company called PGS Worldwide. So the nice thing about doing something like that, if you can negotiate it with your employer, with your manager, is that so instead of doing a W-2 form for taxes, you'll do a 1099, I believe. Feel free to look into that some more. But what essentially happens is, since you're the independent contractor and you're in charge of your own independent contracting work, everything that you buy for yourself and use for yourself in order to get your tasks done can be written off as a tax write-off. So when you're an employee, you can't really do that, obviously. Like, you're using paper for the printer, you can't just write it off as a tax write-off. But as a independent contractor, and I believe there's a channel, Joshua Fluke has talked about this, you can work as a independent contractor with your current employer if you're able to negotiate that. which again is fairly rare, but if you're quitting anyways, then maybe it's not a terrible idea to bring it up. But basically everything becomes a tax write-off because you're paying it out of your own pocket. And maybe possibly if you need to travel for the employer, they'll help. Well, that's not true now that I think about it. I was going to say they might help pay for your travel as well, but that's not always the case. It depends on the contract you sign with them. Otherwise, it'll be up to you to do your own travel expenses. That's like the one benefit of being an employee for something like a defense contractor is if you have to travel to Huntsville, Alabama, or Vandenberg, California, like anywhere that has all these Air Force bases and like all these places that are tied to other defense contracting facilities. I think even Ohio and near like Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio have a bunch of places you can go to. If you have to travel there for business, the business will help pay for that because it's a business expense. But if you're an independent contractor and they're making you do that, you're gonna have to pay it out of your own pocket, which kind of blows. But as long as you're getting paid, it should kind of equal out. But again, that all depends on the contracts that you negotiate with the employer. But one thing I do notice that, especially as an engineer, if you're an independent contractor, once you go over your 40 hours for the week, you get time and a half. Which unfortunately doesn't apply to salaried employees majority of the time. Majority of the time, as a salaried employee, you have to donate like 10 hours before they even count it as overtime. And then you just get paid 1 times what you're usually making. But that was the one thing I did miss about being an independent contractor. As soon as I got to like 40.1 hours, I got time and a half for that 0.1 hours. So every once in a while I would end up working like 44 hours. And so for 4 hours, I got time and a half my salary for that week. And it was actually really nice. I mean, part of that's obviously still goes to my retirement, my 401k and all that kind of stuff. But obviously if you're working for yourself and you're making a decent amount of money, there's a chance you might not even want a 401k at that point. Although if you're working for yourself, you'll have to look into 401ks and stuff like that. Otherwise, you just create your own IRA account and just put money into that. You're your own boss at that point, so you do whatever the hell you want. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how you should invest your funds, but you should at least have some sort of savings going on, just in case things go poorly. But I think those are the things I can come up with at the top of my head. Write down in the comments if you can think of other ways to leave defense contracting. I know it seems like it's super difficult, and then once you get a defense contracting job that there's no way out, but honestly it's just like having any other job. You just have to roll with the punches and try to translate and transition your current skill set that you've gotten from your current job into another job and translate that through the interview and try to get that through to the person. Obviously you might have some holes in your skill set, and I would definitely recommend working on those. Like if you don't have a whole lot of wireless and Bluetooth experience, you might have to do some more research in that field and try to see maybe you can get an Arduino board and try to do some wireless projects through like Instructables or something like that. There's one thing I have noticed in engineering is that it's kind of hard for engineers to like leave their job and become freelancers, because I don't know how much of a demand there is for like a freelance electrical engineer, especially with my skill set where I'm like, I've worked on products for the government. Like, how does that translate to anything? I think I've seen where people have worked for places like Northrop Grumman. I've seen senior engineers come out of that and then become their own bosses, but they're still defense contractors, but they're their own bosses, so it kind of makes it a little more tolerable. So I've known a senior engineer who worked for Northrop Grumman and then now has their own like chemical research company, and they basically do consulting for they almost do consulting for defense contractors that are already contracted to the government, and also consult directly to the government as well, and that gets a little confusing. Even I don't fully understand it all that much, but that is also in the realm of possibility, to just become a contractor and continue doing defense contracting, but doing it on your own terms. Which, in my opinion, anything's better than having to sit in a freaking cubicle and be told, well, we need you to work on this spreadsheet. And then you do that for like 2 hours. And then you're like, okay, what else do you need me to do? And they're like, no, that's it. Just sit there and wait for the next task to come in. But be sure you're using the right charge numbers. It's like, what? So anyways, guys, like I said, write down something in the comments if you have other ideas. Let me know if you have any other ideas for other videos that you want me to do, and I'll look into that. But either way, guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I appreciate you guys as always, and hope to see you in the next one. Bye.